I've asked Todd to do our land acknowledgement.
The Sitka School Board acknowledges that our schools are located on the ancestral homelands of the Tlingit people who have lived in Sitka since time immemorial. We express our deepest respect and gratitude for our indigenous neighbors, the Tlingit, for their enduring care and protection of Tlingit honor.
Whoever this guy is.
Thank you, Todd. Don, can we please do a roll call?
Blossom Teal Olson. Present. Paul Ryu.
Present.
Andrew Haynes.
Here.
Todd Gebler.
Here.
Itana Gloof.
Here.
And President Morrison is absent and excused.
Great. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda and propose I'd like to move item 8 to after item 11 on the agenda, if everyone is willing to do that.
Second.
Yeah, can you say that one more time?
I was just going to move persons to be heard till after the reports, so that way we have a chance to address some folks. Would that be okay? It was second.
Okay, so it has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda and consent agenda with moving item 8, sorry, to just after item 10?
After item 11.
After item 11, so after administrative reports. Okay. Any discussion, any public discussion to the motion? Any board comment or discussion? Seeing none, we need to do a roll call vote for the grant acceptance included in the consent agenda.
Blossom Teal Olson. Yes. Paul Ryu.
Yes.
Andrew Haynes.
Yes.
Todd Gebler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to special reports. I heard we had Dion on the line for government to government. We'd like to start, Dion.
Hello. I would like to begin by just wishing you all a happy new year and say that I'm happy to be here for another year and privileged to appear on behalf of the tribe, and would just like to renew my
Government to government reports. Do we have any, did our Zoom crash or is it there?
I'm speaking, but I don't know why you can't hear me. Hello, can you hear me? No.
When I turn my mic on, we start to get the echo effect again. While you troubleshoot, Rebecca, were you going to present anything tonight? Would you mind jumping up? Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca Himshoot with the Sitka Assembly, and we're looking forward to February 3rd. I think it's always valuable for the Assembly to get the context behind your budget requests. So looking forward to that special meeting with all of you. And I have found that serving in an elected position is a difficult thing to do, so I appreciate all that you guys are doing as elected officials. Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca.
No, they
Any
moved back
progress
after
made
all the
on,
reports.
not to put pressure?
We're going to have her call my cell phone number, and I'll go and put it on speaker and
Okay.
use my microphone.
All right, that sounds great.
So they're doing government to government. We're on 6. You recognize these people. They moved 8 till after 11. So. Yeah.
We'll probably want to try to get this fixed in case there's testimony online as well, but at least to get this going, as soon as she calls, we'll put her up.
Am I able to be heard this time?
She's doing a government to government.
Okay. Are they able to hear me down in the room?
Yeah. I don't know. Get the Zoom to go bigger.
Hello? Am I able to be heard in the room?
Don't think she called the cell phone. Whatever.
All right, you're out the microphone.
Okay, good evening, and I thank everybody for their patience as we tried to navigate whatever difficulties we were having with the Zoom. It's my privilege to be here again this year on behalf of the Sitka Tribe of Alaska for the Government to Government report, and I really just wanted to take a moment to express on behalf of the tribe that we really do appreciate the attention that the district has paid toward really trying to cultivate a strong government to government relationship with the tribe. And so whenever we do have things to report, it's my pleasure to appear. This evening for the government to government report, I don't have a lot to report in terms of programming because like the district, the education portion of our program has also been on winter break. However, that being said, I just wanted to mention on behalf of the tribe our renewed appreciation also for the board and the position in which you find yourselves in making the difficult decisions as we close in on year 2 of this pandemic, and just mention that we as a tribal government have faced similar questions in terms of the protection of our tribal citizens, particularly regarding the protection of our children, because as a tribal government and as a tribe in general, one of our most sacredly held values is the care of our children. In fact, our children's code speaks to our moral, social, spiritual responsibility toward providing for the health, safety, education, and well-being of our children, recognizing that they are, in fact, the future of our tribe.
How'd it go?
And it's not an issue that's exclusive to Indigenous people or to our tribe by any means. I think anyone in considering the role of children in our society knows that the future of our world really does lie with those children. And so the decisions that we make are truly important, and our tribe has seen fit to take several measures in order to protect not only our citizens in general, but our children and our elders in particular. And our measures include flexibility in terms of whether or not our tribe is actually open to the general public, as well as masking procedures and requirements, and also strongly encouraging our workers in particular to get vaccinated so that we can continue to see yet another millennia after this one passes. And so I was asked to appear on behalf of not just our council, but our tribe, in saying that though I may not technically speak for every individual tribal citizen, we as a council do speak on behalf of and in the best interest of our tribal citizens at large. And we wanted to just express our gratitude and also our support to the school board for the extraordinary measures that you have taken in the interest of protecting our children as part of the children of Sitka. And again, to renew our gratitude for the difficult job, knowing that often as you make these decisions that sometimes you are faced with much more adversity than someone ought to be, considering the degree of volunteerism that you are taking on month after month, and not only making these decisions, but listening to all of the people, some of whom approach you with civility and an understanding of what it is that you do, and maybe some who don't. And so we thank you for the opportunity to give our report tonight, and just wanted to express our support. Ganesh.
Thank you, Dion, and thanks for your patience with the technical glitches that we had there. Do we have anyone else under special reports or government to government this evening? Okay, moving on. We have some recognitions that we would like to make. Starting off, we had two listed, but I think one is not here due to travel difficulties, but we would like to recognize the SHS volleyball team. If we have some representatives from them, please come up. I can hold the mic for you.
Excellent. In recognition of the Sitka High School volleyball team Region 5 champions and ASAA state qualifiers, we want to recognize the following students. Chloe Morrison, please come up. Not here, okay. Genevieve Sabian. Talia Fredrickson. Congratulations. Yeah, absolutely. Round of applause. Jesse Christener. Andrea Winger. Here. Michelle Winger. Ava Brady. Is it Jara Costello? Congratulations. Elise Brady. Kayla Trigg. Zeta Demag. Congratulations. Riley.
Or we can read the name.
Yep. Riley Nutting. And Zadie Allen.
Is the coach?
Is the coach, yes. Yes.
The last two names.
Christy Brady and we said Hillary Nutting already, so excellent. How about another round of applause for our volleyball players? Congratulations. Thank you, ladies, so much.
And we were going to recognize Addie Poulsen, who was selected as a delegate to the 2022 United States Senate Youth Program, but we'll see if we can move that personal recognition to our next meeting in February. Okay, we're going to move on to reports and presentations, I guess, which include just board member reports. Yes? Okay. Paul, would you like to begin? Would you be willing to begin? Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it was great last meeting to have a lot of people here. It's so awesome to see, especially when we do the recognitions for the students, to have a full room for them. It was a little difficult because I think that a lot of folks didn't maybe understand the process, that we can't really due to Alaska Open Meetings Act, we can't really have a discourse on stuff that's items off the agenda. I really appreciated the people that stayed through the whole end of the meeting. Got to have some really good conversations. Had a lot of people reach out all over the place over the last month, and had a lot of really great conversations. So that's been fantastic to get some input. I just wanted to share and be really clear, because I think there is some misconception. And I know Amy, we drafted a letter and sent it through the paper last week, but this has been a really long road. Of course, none of us have ever asked for some of the stuff we're dealing with right now. It's been unexpected, to say the least. And, you know, I've gotten to be here through this whole process, and I watched Superintendent Holst take the approach of, you know, getting a bunch of folks involved with coming up with our original plan when the governor had shut everything down. And for each of the schools, I mean, there was like 10 or 15 between teachers and counselors, administrators, parents at large. You know, there was huge groups that worked on it. They put in a lot of time. And then, you know, one of the things that we did at that point was to have several public meetings, you know, to get people's feedback and to get information out there. And then we sort of repeated that process, you know, as this has been a dynamic couple of years, you know, with Superintendent Hauser and doing some of those same meetings at the beginning of August. So I just wanted to make it really clear to the public that those things have been an ongoing process. It hasn't just been, you know, tearing open an envelope and following the directions. It's been a community process. So, and it will continue to be a community process, I believe. So that's one of the things that it's been really nice to have that discourse with people this month and talk about, you know, how the role of the school board and, you know, and the role of the way the government works and how to navigate that. So thank you everyone for your concern and involvement. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Todd, did you have anything to present tonight? Passing? Okay. Blossom?
I just wanted to say as well.
Okay. Itana, anything? No? Okay. No, I would just, say, agree. Thank you, Paul, for your comments. And this is an intense process and can be. I came onto the board right in the middle of all of this as this was all developing. And so I don't know what normal looks like. And I think that there's just so much to consider, and I want to assure everybody that us being in a position where we receive a lot of feedback it can really make your head spin, and I really appreciate everyone's feedback. And as Paul said, at the last meeting, having that many people, that's the most attended board meeting that I've had since we were here. And again, the people who stayed had good conversation afterwards, and it has led to some other good conversations in the time since then. I just want to, you know, remind everyone that we receive a lot of feedback through multiple channels, and even just today, a lot of emails that have come in, you know, from lots of different perspectives, and I want to assure everyone that we take those perspectives into consideration, and that the process was laid out and developed to try to include as many voices and concerns as possible. So I look forward to hearing from people again this evening, and thank you for the opportunity for us to speak beforehand. And I hope we're all seen as it's not difficult to contact us. Email is a great way to do that, and finding us within the community is not hard for most of us either. So thank you for that, and I really hope that our teachers and staff had a nice break during the winter break. It's crazy that school is already starting up again tomorrow, so safe travels on icy roads for everybody, and best wishes for the spring semester as we go towards summer. It will be here before we know it. So that's all I have this evening as well. So moving through from board member reports, we were going to do administrative reports next. So, Mr. Hauser, if you could give us a budget update.
Yeah, sure. Just as you can go through and look, updated budget in place. As always, we're in the green. Things are coming through, and that's a good thing. I did want to highlight that we will be talking a little bit more about CARES Act and ARP funding a little bit later on, just to kind of give a report and a summary of where we're at currently with our CARES funding. So we'll go into a little more details. I didn't know if there were any questions right now about the budget, or like me to move on to the enrollment numbers.
Any questions from anybody?
All right.
Okay, great.
So enrollment as of just a few days ago, we are currently at 1,126 students enrolled. A quick update with the count, as we talk about the count that we have that determines the funding for the state is turned in at the end of October. We ended up a little bit below where we had projected. We had projected for 1,132 students. And through the process, after the count finishes, they go through and look for duplicate students. And when we were finished, we ended up with 1,130.95 students. So there was a difference of 1.05, which quite honestly is pretty spectacular when you look at how close we were able to get to that count with determining our funding. So I just wanted to update everyone on that small slight change, but also still when you're looking at the number of students that are enrolled and some of the dynamics and transiency we see in some of our districts across the state. That's actually a very close, very good number to be at since we're so close. So that was a good thing. Any questions on the current enrollment numbers? All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the superintendent's report. So we have a PowerPoint presentation, so we'll go through. One of the things that we've been trying to do, and I've been trying to do through the superintendent report, is to highlight and celebrate our schools and our students. For the January board presentation for my superintendent's report, I really wanted to take a moment and spotlight our Sitka School District staff. And so as we go through it, and I wanted to take a moment, on Monday and Tuesday of this week, more than 170 Sitka School District staff attended a day and a half district-wide in-service. Our COVID-19 mitigation protocols were in place, of course. This year's in-service was designed more like an academy where all teachers and staff had the opportunity to select the majority of the sessions they wished to attend and learn more about. The in-service and all the sessions were designed around culturally responsive education, a focus that was identified in the SSD strategic plan as an area to quote-unquote strengthen in the district. We brought back to Sitka Dr. Morgan Rallis to lead a couple of the sessions on using technology and supporting culturally responsive teaching and developing culturally responsive educational practices in the classroom. Helen, I call her Helen because she doesn't like it when I refer to her as Dr. Morgan-Rallis, worked with our schools in the fall and keynoted our fall in-service. She's helped us start down the path as a unified staff and create a shared understanding and vocabulary around culturally responsive education. The sessions were well attended and provided a lot of valuable information about connecting with students, creating a supportive learning environment, and giving students choice in how to demonstrate their learning. But one area I was particularly pleased and proud of was that staff not only attended the in-service, but many of our amazing staff led and facilitated the majority of the in-service sessions that we have on Monday and Tuesday. We really do have some of the best teachers and support staff in Sitka, and I so much appreciate them sharing their expertise and knowledge with their colleagues. I've heard nothing but positive feedback from staff who attended the sessions. Lastly, I would like to take a moment to thank Julia Blanc, SSD Cultural Director, and her staff, Jessica Christensen, and the rest of her staff. Once we decided on a focus and direction for the in-service, they did an amazing job coordinating and facilitating the sessions and the staff to lead them. So I just wanted to thank them for all their hard work and dedication. And it really was an amazing opportunity, a lot of great dialogue, collaboration, and it was just a good day and a half of meaningful in-service training. So wanted to take that moment to celebrate and recognize our staff. I know I said that the focus was going to be on SSD staff, but I wanted to take just a brief moment to celebrate and highlight a return to cheering on your favorite team or performing group in person. Before break, Sitka High School hosted a series of events that brought our community together and celebrated our students' accomplishments. Sitka High School had in December the winter music concert, the holiday shootout, where both the girls and boys basketball teams won their championships, and also participated in the state esports competition, or championships, where Sitka High's esports team finished second. I wanted to congratulate our students and let everyone know how excited we are to be able to bring spectators in to cheer on our athletics and activities. If parents also are interested in volunteering in our schools, please contact your school's front office to schedule a time in advance. I also just wanted to, and this is hot off the press, I wanted to congratulate Stephen Harmon for being selected as GCI's ASAA Student of the Month for December. I've met Stephen and had the opportunity to talk with him on a number of occasions, and I have to agree that he is one of the nicest, most genuine students, and his enthusiasm is contagious. So congratulations to Stephen for being GCI's ASA Student of the Month for December. Just an update on our strategic planning. So our strategic planning action teams, which consists of parents, staff, and community members, wrapped up the action plan development process before winter break. They are reviewing their final plans and making any last-minute adjustments prior to presenting them to the strategic planning team. We are planning on bringing the original community-wide strategic planning team together and reconvening them in February to hear all the action plans and decide which plans to adopt. The final action plan should be ready for implementation starting in March. And now to our COVID-19 update, and a good reminder from Dr. Ajish Jha, Dean of Brown University School of Public Health: an ounce of data is worth 1,000 pounds of opinion. I thought I'd share some interesting historical data first. This might look a little familiar, even though it was from 100 years ago. This is a Johnson & Johnson advertisement from 1919 for a face mask made out of gauze to be worn during the global influenza pandemic that began in 1918. These are some images from the National and Florida State Archives of the 1918 influenza pandemic. We have here a streetcar conductor and passenger, a letter carrier, a group of police officers, and a typist wearing their masks to protect themselves and others from a deadly disease in the center. The deadly disease in the center photo, 2 young students masked up before going to school in Florida during the 1918 pandemic. Clothes are different, but the scenes are very familiar. I think we can look at these images and realize that humanity has been here before, and so have the citizens of this country. We've worked together, worn masks to fight a deadly pandemic, and we've come out of it on the other side. Like Dr. Zink said recently to the Sitka Assembly, no pandemic lasts forever. We put the masks away for over 100 years, and we will do so again. SSD was wearing masks long before I arrived. As I said in my letter yesterday, about a year and a half before. This is the year we are going to be putting them away again, hopefully for even more than 100 years. Incidentally, according to data from Johns Hopkins, more people have now died of COVID-19 than died during the 1918 influenza pandemic. We know that our time in mass is coming to an end once we get out of the other side of this current surge. We've had a dramatic spike in cases in Sitka with 88 cases, and more recently, just looking at the Sitka COVID page, it actually indicates 90 in the last 7 days, or 1,032 cases on the standard per 100,000 scale. You can see that near vertical line I circled at the edge of the graph showing the spike. These are numbers of cases we haven't seen in Sitka since August. To put this size of spike in perspective, on November 30th, we had 10 COVID cases in the last 7 days in Sitka. Now we have 90, an almost 9-fold increase. The state of Alaska had 262% increase in cases last week from the week before. This is the largest week-to-week increase during the pandemic, according to state epidemiologist Dr. McLaughlin. The previous graph is from the state, and these are the case counts of the city and borough of Sitka site. You see the actual count and the case rate per 100,000 in red. The red numbers mean that at all those days, we are in high alert level, and face coverings are required indoors in public settings or communal spaces by city and borough of Sitka ordinances. That ordinance expires March 22nd. As reported in the Anchorage Daily News on January 2nd, according to state epidemiologist Dr. John McLaughlin, the highly transmissible Omicron variant is likely responsible, and that's a quote, for the current surge in cases in Alaska, although sequencing is still underway to determine that for sure. This chart shows the current COVID-19 spread in countries around the world, where you can see a kind of a telltale straight up signature for Omicron that we're seeing on our case rate chart in Sitka now too. A troubling new development with Omicron is the rise in the number of children admitted to hospitals with COVID-19. This is CDC data on hospitalizations of patients COVID. The straight line circled in red represents hospitalizations of patients ages 0 to 17 with COVID-19. On average, 672 children were admitted to hospitals every day with COVID-19 during the week ending January 2nd. This is the highest number of during the pandemic. The American Academy of Pediatrics, representing nearly 70,000 pediatricians, also noted in its most recent report on children and COVID-19 that, quote, COVID-19 cases among U.S. children have reached the highest case count ever reported since the start of the pandemic. The American Academy of Pediatrics also says, quote, at this time, it appears that severe illness due to COVID-19 is uncommon amongst children, end quote. However, they describe an urgent need to collect more data to assess the severity of illness related to new variants, as well as the longer-term impact of the pandemic on children. Hospitalizations for all ages are on the chart. To the right, again, you'll see that the vertical line of growth, hospitalizations for all ages are approaching pandemic highs. Even though the Omicron variant is highly transmissible, there may be a silver lining. Sitka Incident Commander Craig Warren said at the last Unified Command meeting, quote, people aren't getting quite as sick. He added, but I want to caution that with the numbers going up, we could still see higher hospitalizations just because of the sheer number of patients. We see that on the hospitalization chart I just showed. The other silver lining is that, quote, in some countries, Omicron has surged and peaked relatively quickly. So that straight up vertical Omicron signature that has peaked and started to come down, or started to come right back down, sometimes in a matter of weeks. We don't know when exactly this current spike in Sitka will end, but we have reassuring data from around the world that it may be short-lived. However, we are still in high alert level in Sitka, and face coverings are required indoors in public settings or communal spaces at this alert level by City and Borough of Sitka ordinance. The Sitka Unified Command also recommends continued mitigations, including face coverings, and included the following language in its most recent news release. Quote, due to the high alert level in Sitka, Sitka Unified Command recommends continued mitigations. Face coverings were strongly encouraged for individuals regardless of vaccination status. The state of Alaska also states wearing a mask when in indoor public spaces, regardless of vaccination status, is an important step to take to slow the spread of COVID-19. Most Alaskans live in an area with substantial or high community transmission like Sitka, where this action is needed to protect your health and the health of others. Until we're on the other side of this surge, we're going to continue wearing masks and SSD. We need to keep our students and our staff safe and healthy to keep our schools open. I wanted to show you what is happening already around the country. There have already been 3,713 pandemic-related school disruptions, defined as not offering in-person learning, of one or more days during this week alone. So since Monday, there have been over 3,700 school disruptions during this recent surge. This is, quite honestly, a very shocking number and up from the last time I referenced this a few months ago. But there's also good news in SSD. We already have a plan in place that worked to keep our schools open during the previous surge. I think we need to prepare ourselves that we're going to see the numbers of cases associated within our schools climb, but we're going to do everything we can to keep our schools open and all activities going. Again, remember the silver lining here. Data from around the world suggests this surge may peak within a matter of weeks and be short-lived. Some are wondering whether it's time to upgrade from cloth masks because the Omicron variant is so highly transmissible, even more so than the Delta variant. The CDC says that the best mask is the one that you wear consistently and correctly. So, not only down around your chin, you want to make sure that mask is, worn correctly. Personally, in looking at this descriptive picture, I'm kind of fond of number 3 at the top with the mask being worn as a headband. But again, that lower one in the center is probably the best one to make sure that we're being as protected as possible. Dr. Joseph Allen of the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health offers a helpful guide on masks. His prioritization is the N95 or the KF94 masks over surgical masks over cloth masks. SSD has a limited supply of KF94 masks of different sizes on the way. As always, we have 3-ply surgical masks available at all schools every day for students. I've actually had a chance to spend some time at Sitka High School and Blatchley Middle School, and in the morning, students come in, they say good morning, get a squirt of sanitizer in their hand, and grab a fresh mask as they head to school or head to class. Rapid COVID-19 testing is also part of our mitigation strategy. This rapid COVID-19 tests are hard to find in some parts of the country. On the left is an image from the nightly news showing lines for rapid tests around the country. We also have here an image of bare shells in Anchorage where the rapid antigen tests should be, and also a sign from Austin, Texas that takes a little bit more of a lighthearted look at the supply chain issue during the pandemic. I'm proud that SSD was way ahead of the curve with our rapid testing program, and we have the highly in-demand rapid antigen tests available free of charge for all students and staff. Our testing days are on Monday at Sitka High School, Tuesday at Blatchley Middle School, Wednesday at Baranoff Elementary School, Thursday at Keet Shaheen, and Friday at Pacific High School. Our teachers and staff have been testing on the return to school, and I invite students to join them. On the nightly news report I mentioned, one lab reported that half of the positive tests come from people not showing symptoms. Like Dr. Zink said recently, rapid tests empower individuals to know if they're sick or not. They also help us keep COVID out of our schools and students in school and participating in all the activities and events. On the subject of activities, remember that the Alaska School Activities Association does require pre-participation COVID-19 testing for its indoor events. Many of the districts our athletes compete against also require pre-participation COVID-19 testing before competition and events. Finally, here's a look at our most recent vaccination data from the state of Alaska Sleeves Up for School Vaccination Dashboard. This is the data for Sitka residents ages 12 to 18, with 91% having received 1+ dose and 86% fully vaccinated. We have learned just this evening that booster shots will now be available for this age group. According to a CDC news release just this evening, quote, CDC now recommends that adolescents ages 12 to 17 years old should receive a booster shot 5 months after their initial Pfizer-BioNTech vaccination series. And here's the data for Sitka residents ages 5 to 11, with about 1/3 of that group vaccinated, up from about 1/4 in December. Vaccinations for this group only started in November. We have one piece of news from the CDC. They recently announced updated guidelines shortening the recommended time for isolation. Remember that isolation is for people who are sick and tested positive for COVID-19. Quarantine is for people who have been exposed to the virus. People with COVID-19 should isolate for 5 days, and if they are symptomatic or asymptomatic, or the symptoms are resolving without fever for 24 hours. After that, they follow that by 5 days of wearing a mask when around others to minimize the risk of infecting people they encounter. With regards to testing, the CDC says, quote, if an individual has access to a test and wants a test, the best approach is to use an antigen test towards the end of that 5-day isolation period. Everyone in SSD has the access to a test before returning to school from isolation. And just to kind of go into a little more detail, because this is, and we've received a couple of questions about this new guidelines, and this is relatively new, just happened over break on December 27th, and it was updated yesterday a little bit more in talking about whether they're going to require testing. It really comes down to prior to returning, you've been identified as testing COVID positive in isolating. Stay home for 5 days and isolate. Day 0, and this is an important and a little bit of a change in how we have calculated some days. We've always talked about the first day being for us day one. But with the new CDC guidelines, they specifically state day 0 is the first day of symptoms or the day of the positive viral test for asymptomatic persons. And so we always have to remember that day 0 is when it was identified either through a test or symptoms began for COVID-19. If asymptomatic or symptoms are resolving after 5 days without fever or for 24 hours, you can leave isolation, which is on day 6. Again, we're starting on day 0, so on day 6 of that scale, then that is, you can leave isolation. And again, the language about, individual has access to a testing to see if, they are, if they still show that they're positive. If anyone has a fever prior to returning from isolation, they must resolve to end isolation. So they have to be without a fever for 24 hours, even if that is after or around day 6. We need to make sure that if a fever is in place, they stay isolating. And of course, when they return on day 6, coming back in, they need to wear a well-fitting mask around others for a total of 10 days. But students coming back are able to, that are isolating, are able to come back sooner to school, which is great because we're able to bring students back into the school sooner even than before. Originally, students, when they were diagnosed with COVID-19, had to stay home for 14 days. Then we were able to bring that down to 10 days, and now we're able to bring it down even more. And so we're able to get students into the classroom sooner. But of course, it's really important that they continue to wear masks during that 10 days during the 10 days after that initial day 0 identification they were COVID positive. I want to stress again that the data suggests the brighter days are just ahead. State epidemiologist Dr. Joe McLaughlin said the best way to estimate how Omicron will play out in Alaska is to pay attention to how it moves through other states and countries that are already well into their Omicron wave. South Africa, the first country to report the Omicron variant, announced on December 30th that they had passed the Omicron peak at a national level. Just this week, there is news out of London that cases there may have peaked. In this country, officials predict the latest wave may peak by the end of January. So the data at this time suggests a steep and sharp wave of infection, but also on that may peak and decline quickly. Again, SSD's plan is to transition from mass on the other side of this surge. And now, just a couple of announcements. I wanted to take a moment to congratulate the new Miss America, Emma Broyles, who was one of my students at Service High School for 4 years. There was no one more deserving of this honor. Her mom was also one of my teachers, and she was just an amazing student, and I was really excited. I want to take an opportunity to congratulate her. I also wanted to let everyone know that Olympic gold and silver medalist Lydia Jacoby will be visiting Sitka to speak to students on January 27th. And we are very excited to welcome students back tomorrow for the start of school after winter break. That concludes my report.
Any questions from the board? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Hauser, for your reports. And we are now at persons to be heard. So we move this to this part of the meeting. Persons to be heard is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the board about a topic that is not on the agenda. As these are not agenda items, no board deliberation or action will occur in response. Questions for clarification may be posed by board members. The board may choose to refer items to the superintendent or designee for further action. The standard time limit for comments will be 3 minutes unless otherwise stated by the board president with consent of the board. The sound will indicate when time expires. All comments must be respectful, and charges or complaints against specific employees are not permitted. Members of the public are referred to board policies 1312, 1312.1, 1312.2, 1312.3, and associated administrative regulations, as well as to board bylaw 9323 for information on how to lodge complaints. Speakers are also asked to please state their full name for the record prior to speaking. Do we have any persons to be heard this evening? If you would like to speak, come on up to the table. Dr. Ween.
Good evening. My name is Richard Wien. Thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I thought there would be a stampede up here of people to talk. I was kind of shocked, but I will be able to speak. There are a couple of things that I wish Mr. Hauser and myself could go back and forth. In 1919, you showed pictures of the masks. Dr. Kellogg was head of California Public Health and did studies at that time between cities that mandated masks and cities that didn't, and it showed there was no difference in the death rate. I can go back and forth on this kind of issue in a lot of the things that you had mentioned, but the reason I'm here tonight to speak is that I think that part of what the board does, part of what the EOC does, and part of what the Assembly does is actually look at authoritative sources when they make their decisions. And I know that there's been a lot of issues related recently, a lot of commentary about masks. And I have to say that if you haven't noticed that CNN, Dr. Wan is saying all of a sudden, you know, cloth masks that everybody's been wearing are no good, and that we see what's been happening in Antarctica at the Princess Margaret or Elizabeth station, where they have enormous mitigation, and it still comes through. And the bottom line is that last night I had heard something that was mentioned in part here, but I heard it at one of the state meetings, and Dr. Joe McLaughlin said it because he mentioned that masks are about filtration. And the only mask out there that does filtration is the N95. And that mask has to be fit tested, and you have to be taught to be able to use it. So if you really want to have a mitigation, you need to teach the staff and the students how to use their mask. It's not just a well-fitting mask. There are specific guidelines on how masks actually fit and how they work. It's filtration. And N95s are the only ones that are able to do it. The bottom line is, Joe McLaughlin said it's filtration, it's N95, cloth doesn't work. The surgical masks that I'm seeing here, et cetera, are poorly fitting masks. They will not work. And I think that if you're looking for an authoritative notion, Joe McLaughlin says it doesn't work. If you want to do it here, it's over with the masks. They do not work. You see the spikes. It won't affect Omicron. It won't affect the viruses. It just is not going. And you really have to accept that fact. And I will speak with you. I will do whatever it takes in order to convince you that at least this momentary thing is not the right thing. And Mr. Hames kindly said, well, I don't know what normal looks like. You know what normal looks like? A smile. And these things can be removed without any effect on mitigation. And each one of you do not have an appropriate mask on. And none of the students do, because they're not being taught. And I'll end it here. And I just want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity. But you really need to do what educators need to do and teach your students how to analyze data and then come up with reasonable decisions. And right now, it is coming out down the road that more and more people are saying these things don't work. And they didn't work in the Spanish flu. And I can give you the citations, et cetera. But again, thank you. Stop this nonsense. Make it voluntary. And I think everyone will be much happier. And then you may see a few more smiles around school, because the kids definitely don't know how to use masks. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
And that was Joe McLaughlin who said that, that it doesn't work.
Would anyone else like to speak? Don't forget to turn your mic on and state your name for the record.
Ralph?
I have just 1 minute to thank Paul for his speech tonight. First time I was there last time was my first meeting, and your message was well received. So thank you. Good evening. My name is Wayne Winther. I have a teenager going to the local high school, and I'm here tonight working on setting him free. I want to start off with this. Anyone can find data to support their beliefs. For instance, an email went out to the parents stating that there was a 262% increase in cases last week over the week before. I looked into this and came up with something totally different. Alaska Department of Health and Social Services weekly update. Case trend, quote, 1,076 cases were reported in Alaska the week of December 19th to the 25th. This is a 0.75% increase from the number of cases reported the week before. Far different than 262% mentioned in the email. The email then goes on from Alaska stats to a national stat. Is this to inform us, to scare us, to justify the ongoing abuse of our children? The national stat stated in the email was, quote, an average 574 children were admitted every day with COVID last week according to CDC data, which is a record high during this pandemic. According to Alaska Public Media, the average number of children admitted per day was 334 during the week of December 21st to the 27th, less than the record 342 average per day. The record, 342 average per day set in September. Where did the number 574 come from? We are receiving inflated numbers from the school district. The email, The email also reads, CDC, quote, CDC recommends that the best mask is the one you wear consistently and correctly. The CDC must have missed the notice printed on the side of the mask boxes. This product is not a quote, this product is not a respirator and will not provide any protection against COVID-19, end quote. There are other versions of boxes saying the same thing. Why do the boxes now say this? Well, because it's true. Moving on, the EUA, Emergency Use Authorization, is in effect. EUA means any product, facility, device, etc. with this designation must be voluntary, which currently includes masks, PCR testing, COVID vaccines, mRNA technology, and labs. The EUA, in definition, is an experimental therapy that we have the right to accept or refuse. Those refusing to honor or acknowledge my right could be held liable under federal law and numerous others. In closing, we the people are protected under the federal law, EUA, Nuremberg Code, Declaration of Helsinki, Bill of Rights, and more that all pertain to the breaking of law and human rights this school board is doing. While all the death and complications from experimental shots and a whole list of illnesses from prolonged use of unapproved masks pile up under the EUA, no one will be held accountable. And that was by design. However, the school district is not covered under the EUA. Documented damage to children for prolonged mask use is far greater than the risk of COVID to children. Your mitigation strategies contribute to the pandemic and of harm to children. I do not consent. My child is not your science experiment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winther.
My name is Brett Wilcox. I'm the author of Jabbed, How the Vaccine Industry, Medical Establishment, and Government Stick It to You and Your Family. You are victims of geography. Let me explain. This is a photo of my granddaughter's school class taken a few weeks ago. You can see their faces, which tells you that these kids are fortunate enough not to live in Sitka. According to the prevailing belief held by many educated adults in Sitka, including members of this board, visibly smiling school children are dangerous. When masks come off, schools shut down. That wily virus must not have gotten the memo because my granddaughter's school and hundreds of thousands of schools like hers around the world remain open. If this entire school board were magically transported to my granddaughter's school district, you would all be free to reference the science. The dozens of studies several people have repeatedly shared with you that clearly demonstrate that masking school children is a joke, a physically and emotionally dangerous, abusive joke. But you can't do that in Sitka because science doesn't matter in Sitka. Why not? Is it the water? Perhaps the longitude and latitude, the salty air, or maybe it's the fact that religion plays a greater role in Sitka than where my granddaughter lives. The religion of public health is strong here. Granted, it's stronger in Israel, where vaccine passports are turned off for people who haven't received the third dose of the experimental gene therapy, or in Austria, where unvaccinated people will soon be jailed, or in Australia, where police beat and slam unmasked people into the ground. But religious zealots in Sitka have seized control of public venues while demonstrating silent complicity with those who call for violence against unbelievers. Thus, you are victims of geography. If you are to serve in Sitka, then you have no choice but to convert to the religion of public health, or to pretend that you're converted. Pretend that snot and spit-filled masks ward off evil spirits. Pretend that your policies don't create a haven for terrified teachers to harass children. Pretend that school children are your primary concern. Of course, you do have a choice. You could stop pretending. You could stand against anti-science religious zealots. Yes, the cost would be high. So high, in fact, that statistically speaking, you won't do it. Self-interest is a powerful force. As long as it remains politically advantageous for you to mask school children, you will do so. By covering the faces of school children, you are covering your backsides. And despite promises to the contrary, if it ever becomes politically advantageous to require dangerous and unnecessary experimental gene therapy injections, you will do so. Because religion, because politics, because CYA. It sucks to be human, but not always. Even in the worst geographical locations, in the worst of times, a few people stand up and defy self-interest. We honor such people from the past. Our children and grandchildren will one day look back and honor such people from today. I pray that members of this board will be among the honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Would anyone else like to share this evening?
Hello, my name is Jennifer McNichol, and used to serve on the other side of the table, so I want to reflect on the fact that I empathize with the position you're in and the challenges that you face and that you have been facing over the last several years. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your work and your service, for the thoughtful and considered way that you have addressed, and we're all sick of this word, unprecedented time and unprecedented issues in our lifespans anyway. I really appreciate Mr. Hughes and Mr. Haynes' comments earlier today, but I also truly appreciate Superintendent Hauser's presentation. I thought that was very thoughtful and well-timed and well composed. I've communicated with you all by email. I hope you received that. I'm not going to dive into the details of that, but I just want to share anecdotally that in the abundant free time that I discovered after I left the board, I took on some additional work responsibilities, which include providing pediatric services in Juneau. And just to be clear, I'm not here representing my employer. I'm just speaking from the experience that I'm encountering in my job. The difference between Juneau and Sitka in the prior school year was that, as probably you all know, Juneau was much less in-person. They didn't go to any in-person option for many, many, many months. And the effects of that on the children that I was seeing over there were profound. Comparing that, week to week between the Sitka kids and the Juneau kids, it was just really striking to me how they were suffering and how their education, how their family dynamics and family success was devastated in many cases by trying to have at-home learning for kids with significant developmental disabilities, with behavioral concerns, with complex medical problems. It was so disheartening to see how these kids were backsliding and losing milestones and losing social contact in particular. So whatever it takes to keep school in person, in session, that's the priority. I'm not going to fall down a rabbit hole of cherry picking data on masks and not masks, and that's not why I'm here. I just want to commend you for what you did to keep school in person as much as possible, as much as was feasible, and I hope that priority will continue going forward. So thank you for your service. Thank you for what you go through. I can empathize with it. And please continue to seek out the best information and the best input, and consider all of our students, not the ones with the most vocal families, but the ones who need and require access to education in all cases. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'm Veronica Stewart. I have something written from my husband first, and then I'll speak, if that's cool. So, 3 minutes for him. He has to watch our kids.
Right. Okay, so just so I understand, you have a message from your husband and then one from you? Okay.
I thought that as well, and I have some in the back for you guys if you want to pick them up. Okay, so I'll start with the one from him. Okay. I almost started here with the numbers and data, but I came against that because people tune out or try to debunk you. Either way, the CDC's own data, children in the U.S. are basically at no risk of dying from this, almost 0%. I believe everyone that has come here tonight has already chosen a side. So instead of arguing the data and the morality of forcing children to cover their faces and depersonalize themselves over a virus that they are virtually at no risk to die from, I'll speak of those to you who know in your hearts that it's wrong, but are afraid to stand on your convictions. Speak out or possibly sacrifice some security of your lives, whether it be your job, your perceived standing in your community, or your friendships, who may disagree with you. I have been encouraged to focus specifically on the mandate for children to wear masks in school, but I believe that this particular issue is only a symptom of the problem that is much more broad in scope. And I believe that the solution for the part and the whole to be the same. It won't stop at masks for kids in schools the same way it didn't stop over 2 years at 2 weeks to flatten the curve. The elderly, the children, federal employees, private citizens, mask mandates, vaccine mandates, and passports, these all angles and facets to the singular issue and the issue of surrounding circumstances that continue to escalate daily. Currently, as I write this, my own standing in life is on very shaky ground for not going along with the mandate required by my employer. If I lose my job, I lose my benefits, which include health insurance for me, my wife, and our 3 young children. It is not a small risk to take, and it will be the furthest from a small sacrifice. I knew all of this prior to my decision. Worst case scenario, we stand to lose a lot, all that we have achieved and worked for. But I know then and now in my heart that if I go along with these ever-increasing restrictions and demands is to enable them further. How can I participate in this ever-growing drama and expect others to save us from it? How can you? If you believe the sole issue to be that of masked mandates for school kids still applies, I believe that you guys really can hear us out. If you won't speak out or go against it for your own security and comfort, to that I ask, do you consider the security and comfort of the children being forced to cover their faces for hours a week every day? To consider the long-term effects of forcing healthy boys and girls to behave like they are sick, to behave like they are carriers of a supposed deadly and highly transmissible disease, to the illogical, mind-breaking protocols around it? You must cover your face every day, or someone else might die, someone else might get sick, but you can take it off to eat or around each other. I'll still finish mine.
Sure.
Okay. All children deserve a normal childhood. Children today deserve freedom from the hysteria that is an extremely vocal minority of hypochondriacs that have managed to stir up and perpetuate since the early 2020. No one is coming to save us from this mess. Too many of us have spent too long waiting for someone else to come put their foot down for the rest of us to follow. That person isn't coming. That hero that you're waiting for is yourself. If not now, who's going to save them? If not you, who? If not now, when? This is a picture of a little girl that got staph infection 4 times from wearing her mask at school. 4 times. So this little girl is afraid of being sick, and she goes to school and gets sick from the mask. The CDC has said they don't work for children and that children are basically at no risk. What are we doing? What are you doing? This is hurting them. Spiritually, mentally, physically, this is wrong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, some of you might know me from last year. Some of you might know me, some of you don't know me. So I talked about the mask last time and the whole thing about so the woman who just came up here, she gave a good reason about this, and that she was talking about this little girl. And so like the other thing is that the mask thing is not helping anything. It's just making everyone like really sick, and people around the world have gotten fear out of this. Is that the people that are making this are trying to get fear out of all of us. And they should know that this is, all the fear thing is not helping. It's just making people, these kids are getting pulled out of school because of the whole mask thing, because it's getting everyone sick, because like they think the vaccination thing is helping. It's not going to help anything. It's just making people sick, because like everyone does not want to have an opinion with what they should choose, because parents want their kids to get the vaccination, but it's actually their choice, because parents want their kids to get this, and kids have been pulled out of school because they think they have been exposed to COVID, and COVID, it hasn't done anything to kids. It's just making people sick, and they should know like it's a sickness, but it's not like, it's just like a stuffy nose or just a stuffed throat. And they think the vaccination thing is gonna help with this whole COVID vaccination thing. It's not helping anything. It's just making people sick. It's making it worse. Because like when the whole vaccination thing is like going on, they think that the full vaccination thing is gonna help. And they don't know that yet. They haven't really identified and see if it was safe for kids yet. Like they don't really know if this is all safe or if this is just gonna help anything. It doesn't help anything right now. That's all I had for today.
Thank you for your comments. Would you mind saying your name real quick so I can write it down?
Isabella Dunn.
Isabella Dunn. Thank you for speaking, Isabella.
Good evening, board members. My name is Greg Dunn. I have 3 kids in school, so I wanted to start to say I appreciate everything you guys have tried to do. I know you're in the worst position you can possibly be in, but I also want you all to be able to use common sense. We can look at data, we can look at everything all day long, but we need to use our brain and analyze what we're looking at from every source. I've done that many times. Common sense says masks don't work. We've done it. We can see different states have different policies. Utah, Florida, Texas. They don't require masks in school. They're not shutting down. All the states that require masks, all the states that require all this crazy stuff that we're doing, like California, New York, Chicago, all these places. That's where the schools are shutting down. You know why? Because everybody's getting sick. Masks don't help. if you use common sense just in Sitka, let's just talk about Sitka and use common sense. As soon as kids get out of school, the masks come off. They're all hanging out together. How are the masks working? They're not getting sick. They're all hanging out together right after school. So why are we forcing them to wear it for 7 hours a day at school? Barely getting a break because when they go outside, if somebody comes by and says, oh, you're not wearing masks or you're too close. Let's use common sense. If the kids are hanging out together after school and they're not getting sick, why are we making them wear masks? We're making kids wear masks to protect adults. It should be completely opposite if we use common sense. So that's all I ask of all of you. Use the common sense that we all have, and we can see how wrong everything is. It's time to stop. Just move forward without masks, and I guarantee everything will get better. The divides will go away. If you give everybody, say, hey, you have the option. I believe in free choice. Parents should be deciding what should be going on with their kids, nobody else. If parents want their kids to wear a mask, let them wear a mask. That's up to them. You know, I know you all understand what I'm saying, free choice. But right now, it shouldn't be mandated. Let it be a choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Would anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jamie Dunn. So I may be one of the first frontline responders to actually speak to you guys because I've seen the effects that I see on patients because I've transported about 95% of COVID patients here. And also I have a very complex special needs child. She has not been sick at all this year because I have special things set in line. When the kids come home, they wash their hands, masks come off, period. And this is something that we've done. Like, my kids will see me. They're like, why do you have marks put in your face? I wear an N95 for sometimes almost 2 hours at a time. Like Dr. Lean said, they don't work unless you are specially fitted for these, period. Like the masks that everybody else is wearing, they're not working. And to have a complex child in a school system and to have the protocols that are set in place for her, the staff make sure that they're healthy, which has been fantastic. And I totally appreciate her aides for always looking out for her. But I not only have to worry about myself, I have to worry about patients that I take care of. Because at this point, I live my life in the back of an ambulance. It's period. But I also have to split my time at home. The thing is parents should have a choice to vaccinate their kids or not. When I take my child to the pediatrician, first thing is, get them vaccinated. No, I'm not. I've been vaccinated and I almost died from mine. My kids have seen the side effects that I've had. They've seen how much it has destroyed my health. But I still put my community first and my family and my kids. The thing is parents need to have this choice for their kids. You can't keep forcing it down their throat. You guys are in a very, delicate situation. You guys have to hear both sides. But as a frontline responder, that's something I don't think you guys have heard yet. I dedicate myself to every person I see, but I also dedicate myself to my kids. If you look back there in the back of the room, the little girl in the stroller, she's the most very complex child on this island. She has not been sick. If anything, she's had 1 blood transfusion this year because her body. But we don't make her wear a mask. So I appreciate the staff, what you guys have in place of protecting our kids, but sometimes the kids need a break from their mask. They're not getting a mask break because the public health nurse drives around and spies on the kids. Plain and simple. Give the parents a choice.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn.
Hi. Didn't actually plan to talk tonight, but I'm feeling spontaneous. So, my name is Talia Fredrickson. I'm a senior at Sitka High. I've lived through the pandemic. I've done school online. I've worn masks in school, and it's been about 3 years. When we took a year online, it was very damaging to my mental health. I don't know if you can imagine, but learning school online was very hard. When we finally got back into school, I was overjoyed. Just to be back in school was worth it to me because being online, sitting around the room was hard, but I wanted to make sure that people were safe, so I did it. I've never really been personally affected by a mask. It feels as simple as putting on a coat to me now. And if a surgeon could do it for hours, then I could do it too. And I've never really found anything wrong with it. It's my senior year, and I want to be able to be in school, and I want to take any safety precautions that I can continue to do that. No one loves wearing a mask. I don't think anyone is like, oh, I just have to wear it. You know, if it wasn't for the safety, I don't think that people would do it. But with these consequences, I just don't want to take the risk of losing my senior year and going back online because it was very damaging personally to me. I just want to thank you all for coming and putting in your hours and listening to everyone in the community. And I really appreciate everything you do as a student because it directly affects me as I spend 8 hours every day in this school. And I just want to thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hello, this is extremely spontaneous. I just came for this. I just wanted to say that I've been coaching about 90 girls in the community over the past couple of years through COVID, and they have been absolutely amazing and persevered and worked hard and been committed. If you would come into practice, you'd have no idea that their lives have been completely upended by, having things canceled or taken away from them. Talia, who just talked, she got her junior year state taken away. And anyways, I just wanted to say thank you all for working hard and getting these girls and kids in the school district in the gym and to keep working and keep doing that because it is really, really important. And just being around them and really they make my life a lot better. And so just thank you so much for doing this. And I would just keep hoping that you guys would work hard and make decisions that keep these kids in the gym and working. I did open gym today and I had about 20 girls that were just excited and happy and to be in the gym. And I think with all student athletes and just students in any activity, that's what they need to be doing right now is this because like Talia said, it affects their mental health and a lot of them you might not even see it, but being around them every day, I can tell that it's hard on them. So thank you and keep making decisions that, keep these kids in school and in the gym. So I really appreciate it.
Can you state your name real quick?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Zadie Allen.
Thank you, Zadie.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Twaddle. I have 2 children in the Sitka School District, and I've attended, I believe, every one of these school board meetings, as well as some of the mask mandate meetings that were put out by the Assembly. So I kind of feel like the carrot's being dangled again. We're right back to once the next wave passes. Now it's Omicron. Now it's who knows what next. So just as I've said in all these previous meetings, I'm not pro-mask, I'm not anti-mask, I'm not pro-vaccine, I'm not anti-vaccine, I'm pro-choice. And I think that is why these people are all sitting here, and people on both sides. And I'm glad to hear that people are voicing and expressing their concerns from both sides. And I think that both sides should have a say in what their children' medical decisions are and what they do. The issue that I see here is that the school board and the administration is taking the stance of a goalie here or some kind of coach and trying to maneuver through this. once people have the freedom of choice, your guys' problems, in my mind, will essentially go away. You don't have to play referee anymore. If masks are voluntary in the school, then let the kids that their parents want them to wear masks, and then let the kids that their parents don't feel they're required to not wear them. I think it'll be easier on everyone, the children, the staff, and you guys as the board, of course. So, again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Twaddle. Would anyone else like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Carrie Johnson. I spent part of my childhood sailing with my family on our 42-foot schooner. I remember when I was first allowed or had earned the privilege of holding my own night watch by myself when I was 11 or 12. This was a big deal as I had to adjust sails with the weather conditions. When the weather got rough, I had a lifeline to clip myself into the boat in case a wave washed over me. However, I could yell for my dad and he would be there and he'd have my back. I also had confidence because I had been shown how to take care of myself in the boat. I looked around me in this room here tonight and I see families that are trying to have their kids' backs. Fathers and mothers and loved ones that have taken the time to write letters to the board, to the superintendent to ask, please demask these kids, let the parents have a choice. Why are we not doing this? Their children they know are having emotional, physical, whatever problem it is that they're having. They're asking you to please demask their children. They want the choice. I don't see why we aren't allowing this. It just doesn't make any sense. The board says their hands are tied. The superintendent says that after this next new variant, the mask will come off. But how do we know? How could there could be a new variant? These variants seem to have a lot of cousins. So I respect each of you, but I just can't respect the part you're playing right now, letting these kids stay masked and refusing to give the parents the choice of what goes on over their children's face. The most recent letter that was sent out by the superintendent gave statements that were a little misleading, I felt. Like the kids had been masked for 18 months before you got here. That would make them masked on January 1st of 2020, I believe. And so that's not possible. So I think that might be a little misleading. And why is there no record from the last meeting where under persons to be heard, when there was like 15 or 20 people in this room talking about this issue? And under persons to be heard in that meeting record, there was nothing. I don't know, and I don't understand that because we look back in other records and people would be listed as what they had talked about. Anyways, to me, it really came up as being a cancel culture. Ignore, disrespect. And then people get mad and then everybody wonders why. People want to be acknowledged, you know. The tides turn, times change, roles change. We all need to work together, not tear each other apart. So I'm asking you to listen and hear the mayday that is being sent out by these families asking for a choice for their kids not to wear a mask. When we are out fishing and we hear a mayday, do we wait till we're done hauling our gear and hope the weather warms up in case the water warms up in case someone ends up in the drink? Heck no. We cut the gear, throw her into full speed ahead, and help out our fellow mariner. That's how we do it. We help each other out, and little kids are the first to come aboard, I'll tell you that. What the heck are we doing? And I know it's good to hear the high school people up here, and I agree with them, but I'm talking more for the kids that are unable to talk for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Hello, my name is Darby Osborne, and I'm a senior at Sitka High School. I think that all of us in this room want to do what is in the best interest of students and of children, and I personally believe that staying masked, at least during this spike, is what is in the best interest of students and children. There are several factors. First and foremost, we know that masks are effective. We can look to authoritative figures such as the CDC, the World Health Organization, Mayo Clinic, the National Institute of Health. All of these scientific organizations are saying that masks are one of our best solutions towards preventing the spread of COVID-19. Secondly, we need to look at the timeliness of it. We see that, as was mentioned in Mr. Hauser's presentation, we are undergoing a massive spike in Sitka and Alaska and across the entire world. So now is definitely not the time to be thinking about leaving masks behind. I think that as the months go on, as the spike drops, that is something that definitely should be discussed. However, right now we need to think about how we can continue to ensure that the spread is lessened and how we can continue to keep kids in school. And I'd like to second what my classmate Talia said and what Dr. McNichols was talking about. I think keeping kids in school should be our #1 priority. I did online school. Many of us had to undergo months and months of online school, and personally speaking, it was damaging to my education, to my mental health, to the quality of learning, and I was elated when I was able to be back in the building. So I think that whatever we can do to keep students in the building is what we should be doing. I think that's what you have been doing, and I just want to say thank you so much for listening to all of us. I'm always a fan of civil discourse. I appreciate that everyone has different opinions, but mine personally is that we should keep masks on because they are effective and because we want to reduce the spread of COVID. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dawn Young. I'm a lifelong resident of Sitka. My husband and I have 3 amazing grandchildren in the school system and 3 more on the way. First of all, thank you all for hearing our voices. I truly appreciate all of you. You are tasked with the decisions that you probably never thought you would have to make, decisions that affect others' health, well-being, and ability to earn a living. I know that can't be easy, so. I'm here today to ask you to make masks optional for children and staff in the Sitka School District. With this option, people are still free to wear a mask if they choose to. I'm also asking that you revise the December 1st school board meeting to include the testimony from persons to be heard, please. I'm deeply saddened by the amount of division in our community and hope that changes will be made. The implied threat of school closures is a major cause of stress for teachers, children, and parents who need to work. This type of undue stress can be very damaging and long-lasting. I hear children, adults, and teachers say, well, I'd rather just wear a mask than have online classes, and we just want schools to stay open. By implying that schools will have to close feels like a coercive tactic to force compliance and must stop. You have the power to help begin the healing process for our community. The COVID mitigation American Rescue Plan can be revised. As I understand it, the Superintendent Hauser has the sole authority to make those revisions granted to him by the school board. Correct me if I'm wrong. I ask now that the school board rescind that authority to create more balance in the decision-making process surrounding COVID mitigation. Yes, some children do tolerate masks fine, but some do not. And I would go so far as to say, if given a choice, that most would not wear them. They would just want to go back to pre-COVID, just like you're seeing all over town now. You do not witness the same physical and social and emotional damage that parents witness in their own children, although I know some of you have children. All of these can and do negatively affect their education, and that's what this is all about. Children are being used like pawns to protect adults. Forced masking is not okay. Imagine if you were told you could not wear a mask if you wanted to. I think you probably have all lost a little sleep over forced masking because I think you know in your hearts that it's not in the best interest of the children. I trust you have compassion and recognize the negative effects masks are having on our children. This virus is not going away anytime soon. There will be more variants. We need to learn how to live with it. Children need to We need to let children live free of fear, learn, and prosper with their right to bodily autonomy. I implore you to do the right thing and make masks optional for teachers and students in our school district. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak during persons to be heard this evening?
Hello, I'm Anna Hansen, local resident, mother of 3, and I just have a couple of things I'd like to say. You know, over the Christmas break, I did a lot of shopping locally, and the majority of the stores downtown do not require a mask. They have the sign up, it says highly encouraged or recommended, but they don't force you to wear it, and they don't ask you about it, or they don't have a sign at all. And yet, as adults, we can choose those decisions, but we are sending our kids to a school where they don't have that choice. They're required to mask. And, you know, countless studies have been shown that the masks aren't working. You know, in the beginning of the school year, we had classrooms and everybody was masked and clean surfaces and everything, and multiple cases came out. Let's see. We took away school. We kept them apart from our friends, speaking of the kids, and their teachers. We have separated them, and we have treated these children like they are the virus. And these are growing development, prime age for them to be learning how to interact with their peers, how to have these lifelong friendships, how to live as an adult, as a person. And I just don't see how you can do that with something covering your face. Let's see, epidemiologist Shamez Ladhani states that children aren't taking the virus home, then transferring it to the community. Kids have very little capacity to infect household members. That being said, why are we doing this? Schools across the country are dropping their mask mandates, or at least making them optional. England's medical advisor, Dr. Susan Hopkins, says it's important that school children don't wear masks. She goes on to explain that this is because COVID infection rates are so low among their age group, and wearing face covering affects their development. The UK has decided to keep kids out of masks. Bottom line, kids don't spread COVID the same way. Schools aren't infectious hotspots. We are the adults. We are the protectors. It is our responsibility to educate and protect our kids. These kids have become collateral damage in this war. We have to let them live, breathe, smile, laugh, and anything else at this point is just cruelty. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hansen, for your comments. Is somebody on Zoom? Great. Got to do the phone interface again? Okay.
You can go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, would you say your name for the record?
Yes. My name is Susan Brandt Ferguson, and I am, of course, like many of us, wearing a couple of different hats here. I have been a district employee for over 25 years, music teacher at Heat, and I also am the parent of a recent graduate and a high school student. Grew up in Sitka as well. I echo the sentiments of many people tonight that we're just so grateful that we can keep our kids in school virtual, and that we as teachers can teaching kids in person. I don't think it's an idle threat to consider the possibility that without good mitigation that would be happening. I really appreciate Mr. Hauser and the board keeping a steady hand on our COVID mitigation, getting us through this hard time, having a heart for our children and our staff, and really listening to these very varied opinions from our community and weighing them all. As a music teacher in elementary school, it's been quite a challenge to deal with masks in terms of singing and band, but honestly, while I continue to miss normal school life and music making with children, we're still making music and making connections. I've been truly amazed how much we can do. I have, of course, I see all third, fourth, and fifth graders, plus many who do fifth grade band as an optional activity, but I also have an optional fourth grade choir that meets at recess time, which is one of the mask-free times, and about a quarter of the fourth graders choose to stay indoors with a mask on so that they can sing and connect in person. And again, I look forward to the day when the masks can go away, but I think that is absolute evidence that that kids are willing to tolerate it so that they can have this connection. And I think that we can make it work and keep people healthy in the process. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening. And I don't envy your hard decisions, but I appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Brand-Ferguson.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak for persons to be heard? No? Really appreciate everyone being here tonight, and thank you for your comments and your perspectives. They are all valid and important. Okay. Okay. Going into new business. Does anyone want to break? You're good? Okay. This is my first time chairing a meeting, so thanks. Performer in me, you're never supposed to let them see you sweat. And I just did. Okay, moving on to new business. Item 12A, approval of the technology standards. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve the technology standards in the first reading.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the technology standards presented on first reading. Is there any public comment to this motion? No? Any board deliberation? Okay, so we had, I'm sorry, am I missing something? No? Okay.
I was just going to say we do have a presentation from Cindy Duncan who's going to talk about the standards and not really persons to be heard on it, but a presentation to just provide some background on some of the work that the technology committee did to work through the process and to the adoption of the new tech standards. And so she's going to provide, there is a presentation behind you if you'd like to follow along, but I just wanted to.
We're so glad you're here. Thank you, Ms. Duncan. You have the floor.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Duncan. I'm the Tech Integration Specialist and the co-chair of the Sitka School District Committee. Tonight, I'm here to talk about the need to adopt the state tech computer standards.
Not really. I'm just listening to this.
So a little background. In 1996, the school board adopted 6 action plans for improving educational technology in the district. Here we are 25 years later, and every detail found in the 6-page plan is still relevant today, and tonight we'll focus on action plan number 1, standards.
I don't want to catch a few of the conversations.
21st century, I sat in a computer lab at Baranoff as a 3rd grader, and our school computer teacher taught everyone computer programming. Every student got computer science lessons. Over the decades, as technology has increased, I think we started to neglect it. Perhaps the more technology has become embedded in everyday life, we took it for granted, or maybe the rate of change was intimidating. But here we are, a quarter of a century into the 21st century, and now, more than ever, we need to make sure all students receive baseline 21st century computer skills. And that is why I'm here today. The Tech Committee is asking you to please consider adopting the state technology standards. As you may notice, the standards before you encompass digital literacy and computer science. These standards were created and adopted by the state in 2019. The digital literacy standards focus on leveraging technology for learning, expression, digital citizenship, and communication. And the computer science standards are meant to establish a baseline literacy in computer science for all Alaskan students grade K through 12. These standards are broken down by grade level and provide guidance for designing curriculum, assessment, and teacher preparation programs. So let's talk briefly about why they're important. So in 2009, I presented to the school board about 21st century learning. My 2nd grade students shared why technology in the classroom was important to them. I shared that as educators, we are trying to prepare our students for jobs that don't exist yet, to use technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems that we don't even know would be problems. Fast forward 14 years, and my 2nd graders who shared are now using technology in their jobs and lives to solve problems we didn't foresee. Now thinking ahead, what will careers look like in 2030? We know the workforce will be data-driven, one that leverages technology to bring new ideas into the marketplace. Employers will be needing workers that understand not only how to use technology, but how to create it. Simply put, our students will need to be innovators and creators. And to do this, they will need opportunities to learn computer science and digital literacy. So as we all know, computers and software are changing everything. But many schools still don't teach it. A recent comprehensive Gallup survey of parents and school administrators show the stark gap between what parents want and what's happening in our schools. We know, or we are fortunate to have computer science classes in our high school. But in our district, we don't require computer science or digital literacy. We only have one required elective in 6th grade. Computer science isn't taught at all our schools or to all our students. So imagine if we didn't have math or ELA standards, or even worse, if we didn't even have the expectation that it'd be taught. So let's take a step back though. When people hear the term computer science, they often think about the technology it creates. Just because a student knows how to use Snap or how to create a TikTok video, it doesn't mean they know how to use technology to enhance their learning. Some may worry that technology standards increase screen time, but digital literacy is about teaching balance, responsibility, and safety. So the reality is that computer science is about logic, problem solving, and creativity. It teaches students how to think differently about problems they are trying to solve in any context. It's about equipping our students to be the creators and not just the consumers. So technology affects every field of commerce, and every single day this trend is growing across every single industry. But if I ask you what is photosynthesis or what is H2O, these are all things we would expect kids that graduate high school to know. Every 21st century student should also have a chance to learn about algorithms, computational thinking, and how the internet works. Right now, there's no expectation in our schools that students will even have a basic understanding of these concepts, even though they are driving large part of our society. So computer science and digital literacy is foundational for every child in our district, regardless of career. Adopting these state technology standards is a step forward, unlocking an entirely new future for our students. If adopted, the Tech Committee would work to draft a gradual implementation plan, such as the one above. The idea is not to add more for teachers to do, but to have the time to plan, develop, streamline, and enhance what we are doing. When discussing the costs associated with implementing these standards, we felt like the district could utilize resources and partnerships in top-rated free K-12 curriculums such as code.org and keep the cost very minimal, if any. So I would just like to close by saying that these state standards, if adopted, will support the district's mission to inspire and prepare students to be compassionate, empowered, and equipped critical thinkers within a global community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Does anyone have any questions for? Sorry, I read if you already get up.
I just want to bring light of how much time and effort you have put into everything. Your presentation tonight, I've attended the tech committee meeting, and I look forward to more. I fully support this effort because I think part of the frustrations that we experienced during the first part of the pandemic when our schools were online, our schools faced children with many different levels of computer literacy, which added to the frustration and barriers that everyone experienced. It put more added stress on parents and teachers. And so, not to age myself, but when I was in school and in computer technology class, that was required. Part of that class was to Google something. So since then, we have all grown, and while we may have more technology within the palm of our hands, it doesn't mean that everyone has the same ability. And if we could assist our district in advancing a streamlined curriculum that would bring forth equity among our students, that would be the best interest of our community. So thank you, and thank you the technology committee as well.
Thank you. I would also like to just thank you for putting so much time into that and thinking about all of just the obstacles that could prevent us from implementing that, because I, as a high school student, barely know how to use Excel. And I know that there are so many more programs, different technologies and stuff that are very necessary and useful in the real world, that I know that not just myself, but lots of other students in the high school specifically are just, we want to know and want to know how to use those kinds of things, and also not have to try and teach our teachers how to use those kind of technologies, because even though we don't know a whole lot, some of our teachers also know less than we do. So I feel like these standards and stuff would be really useful in our school district and to our students' futures. So thank you.
If I can add, we started, the technology committee started looking at these in 2019 when the state adopted them. And we were really excited and we were passionate about the need to adopt them. However, COVID got in the way and we put it on hold. And I thought this year I'd have to put it on hold again. I know teachers have a lot on their plates, but as I talked to especially secondary educators, they were facing issues that we couldn't keep ignoring. Kids were coming in with mixed abilities. How much computer science or digital citizenship skills students had was dependent upon what teachers they had. So we have to somehow make sure all students are exposed. That's going to help the secondary teachers and everyone down. But we definitely can't wait till secondary to start introducing these. So.
Andrew, may I? So, a few decades ago, you know, in my high school, we were affectionately broke up into different social groups, and I guess I would have been in what was called the wrenches at that point. And I was lucky enough to grow up someplace that had an incredibly advanced vocational center. and got to work on some of the very early versions of CAD Key and AutoCAD, which now AutoCAD is amazing. And I loved how you framed, preparing for the jobs of 2030, because had I known that I would be sitting there looking at a shop teacher that does, CNC work every day, that's such an important thing. A couple of years ago, I had a conversation with the director of AvTech, and she expressed exactly that, dealing with the challenges of people coming from different areas of the state and coming into that post-secondary trade. So I think that computer literacy is a huge deal. And as a business owner, I've had to go by fire and learned a lot of Excel each time, so I can relate. So I really appreciate your perspective, and I definitely want to support, all students of Sitka having this as an advantage. Thank you.
We're all dating ourselves here. Just an anecdote, just thinking about how quickly things have changed. As a kid, when the Nintendo came out and playing it too much, and adults saying, oh, maybe someday you're going to get paid to play video games. Haha, that'll never happen. And it does happen now. It does happen. Everything involving technology. And then just one other personal anecdote, when I was going through my education program at Idaho State, I was one of the last classes that had to take a introduction to technology course, and I felt insulted by it because it was show that you can send an email, show that you can put a PowerPoint slide together, and I'm just like, come on, I've been growing up doing this. So I kind of wrongly thought that, we're past a point where this needs to be part of the curriculum because everyone's growing up using it. But reading through this report and the frequently asked questions, this is a very robust, I just think if more people could see the level of thought and design that's going into this, it's not just about knowing how to design a web page or how to, do something simple like sending an email. It's all about digital literacy and how you can conduct yourself in the technological world. And it's crucial. Where technology used to be something that you could avoid, it's just no longer that way. So I do appreciate your time and your involvement with this, not just in the day-to-day in our district, but the state standards and developments of these. And it's exciting to read through, and I'm looking forward to learning more as it goes forward. So thank you for all of that. Is there any other discussion and comments or questions from the board? Mr. Hauser?
I just want to take a brief moment to thank Ms. Duncan and all the hard work that she's done leading the tech committee. She started this year as our educational tech leader, and it has just been a pleasure working with her this year, and just her excitement and enthusiasm when it comes to really supporting the staff and the students on digital literacy and being able to integrate technology into the classroom, into the instruction. It's been great working with you. So I just wanted to thank you for taking the time and all the effort that you put in this and bringing the tech standards forward to the board and moving us forward into the future.
Okay, so this does not need a roll call vote, correct? I don't believe so. So it has been moved and seconded to adopt the technology standards, Alaska technology standards on first reading. Did I say that right? Any board members opposed? And the motion passes on first reading. Our next two items are review discussions. Item 12B is a review of the emergency connectivity funding. And Mr. Hauser, if you could please give us an overview.
Yeah, I just wanted to put this on the agenda and highlight the fact that through COVID, through some of the emergency connectivity funding that's taken place, I brought back our tech director, our past tech director, Ian Crane, to kind of speak to this. One of the things that Ian was doing before he decided to move on to another job is working with and finding some emergency connectivity funding for projects that we have throughout the district. And we were lucky enough to receive some funding for 3 projects. and there were significant projects totaling up to almost $300,000, approximately $275,000, which is funding that would be having to be paid for by the district to upgrade laptops and to get mobile hotspots. And through his efforts and through the emergency connectivity funding, we were able to get that money paid for and those resources, funded. And so I just want to take a moment to celebrate that, recognize that, but also give Mr. Crane an opportunity to speak a little bit more about some of the projects and about the Emergency Connectivity Fund, just so the board was aware of just some of the great things and also some of the actual projects to kind of go through. And I'll actually let Mr. Crane speak to the projects if he wants to. He's been pretty intimately working with these, and I think it would be a good overview of how we're going to utilize those in the buildings and for students.
Welcome, Mr. Crane. I think you just shut your mic off, sorry.
So I know how to use technology, I swear. 2 quick side notes. I totally still don't know how to use Excel. I learned something on how to use Excel today, and Cindy should be celebrated because half the stuff she would be doing would be super awesome if I hadn't left and saddled her with basically half of my old job. So, but no, the ECF program was a really cool program that came out basically shortly after, I want to say 6 months after COVID originally, like halfway through 2020. And they were originally basically, the goal was to help provide laptops federally funded through this additional program, which is tied to E-rate, to basically give every kid a device and or connectivity. And we were able to apply for that to upgrade Blatchley and the high school so that we have a singular model of laptop that is a better model. So it'll work better for all kids and it'll work better at home for basically anything that they need. And then we also got a bunch of SIM cards and hotspots so that we could have either kids that didn't have internet at home we could provide them internet at home, or a program that I wanted to get off the ground, but before I left was a homework type program. So even if they maybe had internet or we weren't necessarily in a COVID situation where they needed internet, but we could provide them with access at home and a device at home so that they could basically do research, do homework, submit projects outside of the classroom, not just in the classroom. And we got lucky because all of this fell underneath the ECF guidelines. And so we were able to get a whole bunch of funding for devices, hotspots, SIM cards, and some upgrades that will help us provide those programs to students. And they basically came at no real additional cost to us. I think it was about $2,000 fee for the application, but that was pretty much it. And we got, nearly $300,000 worth of equipment. So it was pretty exciting. I can't remember if there was more. I think that was the gist.
So again, how did that roll into that kind of 3-year rollover plan that you had been working? I mean, I know you're moving on, but
the whole thing.
What's that?
Restarts the whole thing.
So we're.
I'm not 100% sure. I was about to build that plan out when I was leaving.
Gotcha.
And then this resets a solid, probably just over a third of all the devices again. So I'm not 100% sure, but it makes it easier in a sense that it gives us a little bit more time to figure it out.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't believe so. So thank you for your time and coming to visit us.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Okay, and so again, this is not anything the board needs to take any action on, correct?
No, because the funding is coming from the ECF, and there's no need to approve that funding since that's actually not going to be coming from us.
Great, all right.
We're reimbursed.
Yeah, we're fortunate for this opportunity. So thank you for the overview and the information. Item 12C is a CARES ARP funding update or overview. Mr. Hauser.
Yeah, I wanted to take this opportunity. We've talked about since COVID started, the pandemic started, there's been 2 levels of CARES funding and the American Rescue Plan funding that has gone towards supporting school districts suffering during the pandemic. Each one of the funding sources, CARES 1, CARES 2, and the ARP, came with specific guidelines and expectations for utilizing some of the funding. One of the things that we wanted to do, the CARES funding 1 was virtually spent down early on in the pandemic, and so we're really going to be primarily talking about CARES 2 and CARES 3, or the ARP funding today. But what I wanted to do is, as we're going through and looking at how we're utilizing the CARES funding, I wanted to make sure we put together a mechanism and a spreadsheet that kind of highlight how we're utilizing some of the CARES funding to get input from the board, to make sure the board is aware of how we're utilizing some of the CARES funding, and also to show how some of that CARES funding is being utilized. And so in front of you in the board packet, there was a CARES ARP fund board report that is a breakdown of the expenditures that have taken place between July through December of 2021. And what we'd like to do is fairly regularly go through and highlight how we're utilizing CARES funding, getting feedback, and really want to make sure the board understands how this is being put to support instruction, infrastructure, and making sure that we're able to, really, especially in regards to the ARP funding, which is the 3rd round, which was for $1,242,273. How that money is being utilized to specifically address academic loss during the pandemic. And so as we go through, we're going to look at a couple of different items, and I just want to highlight how it's broken down. And this is being one of the first times where, we've talked about, and the board has allocated and spent money and voted to spend money on some personnel from the CARES, upgrading the phone system, some network supplies, and these are things that were approved last year. Wanted to go through and just make sure we kind of captured those in a document, but also going through and try to break down that as you look at how the spreadsheet is kind of broken down, you have district school purchases. There's also a section that outlines educational support, and there's a 500 next to it. The 500 is just a way that we're going through and identifying and earmarking that the monies and the items that are listed under the educational support 500, part of the CARES 3, or what we refer to as CARES 3, relates to ARP, American Rescue Plan awards. 20% of that funding has to be utilized specifically to address academic loss during the pandemic. And so that goes to tutoring, that goes to staff, that goes to online technologies that are designed to help support instruction in the classroom. And so as we go through and look at this spreadsheet, and I can answer some questions and go through, I wanted to make sure that I highlighted how that broke down. So at the top, you have district school purchases. Those are just general purchases. And we did try to consolidate some of these purchases. So you're not seeing, the cleaning supplies, gloves and, Effersan cleaning solutions, spray bottles and little things like that. I imagine you guys, I can provide you the complete and total breakdown if you like, but we try to consolidate some stuff so it wasn't, a handful of pages, 20, 30 lines being, medium, large, extra large, small gloves. And so we try to consolidate them down to areas that we thought were representative of how that money is being utilized. And so we go through and you'll see under district school purchases, there's just a breakdown of some of the costs that are associated. And again, that can come from both CARES 2 and ARP. There are some items that have already been approved through the process and outlined here, including, like I said, the Avaya phone system. We have the printers, and there's the SHS the furniture that was approved. And so the goal of this is to make sure that we're able to provide that kind of information for the board to review and look at how we're utilizing the CARES money. And then when we go through and we look at the educational support, I wanted to go and outline and list out the intervention, both the online resources, but also some of the reading intervention resources and some materials that we actually send home with parents and students, so students can work with parents at home as they're actually working through in the classrooms as well. Yep, let me see if we can get this put up really fast. Hold on. Chris, can you go to the website and bring it up? It should be under the board packets. All right, there we go. And Chris, if you can scroll down, so how we have it broken up is kind of the costing and what's actually been expended, kind of expenditures, but also going down and looking at the encumbrances. Those are funds that we're looking at, you know, the needlepoint bipolar ionization. For an example, the school board appropriated $200,000 to go towards that purchase and install. At this point, there's still $26,188.49 left, and so it's expended. It's put in there under the encumbrances because we're still, you know, making sure that that is there and getting all those final installations and everything. And so you'll see how the encumbrances are in there as well and tallying up. And if you go to page 2, there's a breakdown of the actual costing, what the COVID relief awards were for both the CARES Act 2 and ARP funding as well, and outlining what the total award for those two were. And then as you go down and look at the district school, which is again how the district can use the CARES funding to go towards infrastructure, is where some you know, materials and supplies needed, but also the educational, that 500 designation to be used specifically 20% towards you know, academic learning loss that took place, you know, that to address learning loss that took place during the pandemic. And just you can see what has been purchased on that, encumbrances that are in place, and also see how the percentages break down. And one of the things you'll see early on, hopefully as you kind of look through this, is right now kind of district and school supplies are at 26%, but the educational and how we're utilizing the money really is going towards addressing academic loss. And used through the summer programs that we did at Blackjack Middle School for students, through some of the resources that have been purchased to help support instruction in the classroom and learning loss for students as we've come back to full day in-person education. And then finally, the remaining award at this time, we have you know, $766,984.79 remaining, so 44% is still there to be utilized, you know, as we are continuing through and trying to address academic loss. Met with principals today during our admin team meetings, and we are continuing to assess student needs and come up with more plans to support those students that did suffer from academic learning loss, but also trying to address and look at ways to provide social emotional supports and mental health supports, and how we might be able to utilize the CARES funding to go towards that. And so I just wanted to give you guys this opportunity to go through, look at how some of the, you know, what funding is available still and how some of that funding has been used, and if there's a way that we can you know, change the report to provide some more information, or if there's anything else you'd like me to provide regarding this, I'm happy to do so.
And just a reminder to the public that this report is available on the website under tonight's packet. You can download a PDF of it and look over it. Do any board members or even any members of the public have any questions or comments about?
Scott, I have one question.
Todd, go ahead, yeah.
Under district school purchases, the bipolar, that's the air purifier, right?
That is the air purification system, the needlepoint bipolarization ionization.
Will that money be used for maintenance if it's needed? Will it be set aside into an account somehow? How will that be utilized?
So once, depending on how we go through, and you know, let's say that right now that's encumbered, which is the leftover, that $26,188.49 that's left over from the $200,000 that was approved for the purchase and installation of the needlepoint bipolar ionization units. Once they're completely installed, once they've been calibrated, everything else that goes into place, the equipment has been purchased. Once that is completely done, and if there's anything left over in that encumbrance, that money still is earmarked for CARES 2, CARES 3, money. So that will go back into, so if there's anything left over, that will go back into, being able to utilize that for other areas that we might want to support student learning, or if there's other areas which the board wants to focus on utilizing some of the CARES 2 or the ARP funding for. So it won't be moved. It's part of that CARES award, so that money will stay in and be utilized how it's designated per the CARES 2 and the ARP Act.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser, for your report tonight. Definitely, I appreciate the line item factuals that you've presented. Specifically because, if memory serves, at the beginning of this pandemic, Mr. Hames and I both came on board right when it started, and so we were tasked, along with the board, to move forward with the budget and how to spend the CARES Act monies. And I do want to say that since then, there has been a narrative out there that we're using our children for monetary gain. And so this information tonight, I think, shows that every money that we have received has a purpose, and we're following through with all of the regulations that we, thinking about the budget process of how we allocate this was just a huge task. So it's really great to see the numbers. Thank you very much for the very thorough factuals. Thank you.
So can you remind me, so ESSER 2, which is CARES 2, right?
Yes.
And what's the blackout date on that? Is that 2023?
It's 2023, yeah. June 30th, 2023. Or, 2023.
And for ARP, what's the sunset on that? Do we know? 2026 or something like that. It's further out, right?
Yeah, it's further out. Off the top of my head, I'd have to go back, and I can provide you with that that time. So I just don't remember right now if it's
that's okay.
A year later or a couple years later. So I'll get that.
I'm just trying to get this in my head before we jump in it, because I know we're going to be jumping into the budget here. And then, so what are the stipulations on CARES 2? Like, because obviously we're going to have to be thinking about that one specifically this spring, right? In order for it to be for the next school year. What are the parameters, our sidelines on that one?
There it is. Sorry about that. There are a lot of, CARES 2, the ESSER 2 funding, and the ARP funding, there's different stipulations on that. Really, the focus is to, for CARES 2, actually had a little less expectations for spending, whereas, like I said, the ARP ESSER 3 really does have some specific guidelines around utilizing that money, the 20% for academic learning loss that took place. As far as CARES 2, there are certain, you have to go through and go approval. There's I can give you, the deed has an outline of the, what and how this can be used, really focusing on academic, learning loss, supports that support student, and social emotional as well as academic supports, can be used for staffing, can also be used for, and especially ESSER 2, there's some administrative supports. So, and I think that's how, when we were going through and looking at the phone system, looking at upgrading some of the copy machines and everything else, utilizing some of those funds that really were geared towards supporting the overall instruction across the building. One of the things we're looking at, and we're trying to get the final numbers for, and utilizing some of the ESSER money to offset some of the costs. We have a certain amount of money that is technology upgrade money, and we're looking to upgrade our, right now, Promethean boards, which are very dull in the classroom, and in some cases you have to shut the blinds to be able to see them in the classroom. We're looking at, using some of the funds that we have for our normal technology upgrade to go towards purchasing that, and anything that's over our normal that has been already approved through the budget process that goes towards technology upgrades. Anything more than what has been approved to go towards technology upgrades would actually come from some of the CARES ARP money to offset some of that. And so looking at technology to enhance instruction. So those are some of the main ways that we can do that. It's a pretty extensive list of how and what. And once we go through and get this list together, we also have to submit that to the state as well to give a final approval of how that money is going to be spent, and that they say, yes, that is, it meets the requirements set for it by each of the awards.
So it sounds like you'll be working with admin and staff to figure out and bring plans to us for options for, yeah. Super, thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to put this together, to kind of make sure you saw how everything was broken down and how we're earmarking that, and then wanting to make sure, like I said, if there's anything that through the process of, identifying this, if there's anything more you would like as a board to kind of, that I can provide and the administration can provide to say, yes, we want a little more information to see how it's being used for this. And so if there's a way we can build this report a little bit differently to help, give you any more information.
Yeah, thank you for this. I had no doubt all this was being tracked, but this is the first time we've seen like a nice, concise report like this. So thank you for the update, and it's great to see what is remaining. And yeah, it's great to know it's there, and look forward to hearing more from your administrative team on ways we can best utilize this money for everybody. Okay, are there any other questions, or even from the public, regarding this report?
Good evening, Mike Vieira, currently serving as the Sitka Education Association president. I just was happy to hear that Frank mentioned the word staffing there as an allowable use for the ARP funds. We've been under the impression from NE Alaska that is an allowable use of these funds, and so I just encourage you, as you think about learning loss and addressing mental health issues, I think the best way to address learning loss and mental health issues is putting the best teacher and the best mental health professional in front of students. So as we get into the inevitable budget discussion in the coming months, we're not advocating that you have to use this on staffing, but it definitely can be one of the pieces that you keep in your war chest to decide how to deal with the staffing issues for the following year. So just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Noted. Thank you. Anyone else? No. Okay, so that concludes new business for this evening. Correspondence and information, nothing additional under that section as far as I'm aware. And then just a recap, future agenda items and upcoming events, board book training work session that we talked about at our last meeting is still to be determined when that will happen. And then our next regular school board meeting will be on February 2nd, I think in this same place. And it will get here fast. Thank you, everyone, for a good meeting tonight. And our meeting is adjourned at 8:19 p.m.
Watch you take a picture of your first gavel.
Yeah. Do like one of those, bounce ones.